Ahsoka Episode 3 has come and gone, and it was a quick one. This episode was only 37 minutes long, but to me that's fine. After the very sizable, almost 2-hour premiere that we got last week, I was okay with the shorter episode, and I think they used their time very well here. This was a very action-heavy episode. The title of the episode was Time to Fly, and it lives up to that name very well because most of the episode is a space battle, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought this was a very fun episode. I enjoyed watching it. Almost felt like kind of like a popcorn flick, to be honest with you. Just good, fun action. A little bit of story here and there. Most of the depth of the story really came in the first opening sequence. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But the acting I thought was also improved in this episode. I know a lot of people complained about the acting being stilted and robotic in the previous 2 episodes. I think it was better here. I think you see more of Clone Wars era Ahsoka come out. I think that more playful side of her is here. And you also see more of Sabine's personality from Rebels. And this episode once again proves why it's necessary to see Rebels before seeing Ahsoka, because there is a scene later on in this episode that if you haven't seen Rebels, you won't understand the significance of it. So I do implore you, once again, please go see Clone Wars and especially go see Rebels, because I will say, like I did in the previous review, Ahsoka is straight up a sequel to Rebels. It really, really is. You need to watch Rebels to understand what is really going on here. Alright, with that being said, it was a good episode, a fun episode. I really enjoyed it. Go check it out, but now we are going to move on to the spoilers section of the review. And don't forget, guys, I did do a live reaction to the Ahsoka episode. I've done live reactions to all 3 episodes. Those episodes are exclusively on Patreon. You can find the link on Patreon to get to the live reaction of those episodes. Full live reactions, completely unedited. That's only $3 a month. Go check that out. All right, so with that being said, this should be a shorter review, a much shorter review compared to the last 2 episodes compared to last week, because number one, we only have 1 episode to review, and not only was this episode shorter, but it was mostly an action episode. But the action was really, really good here, and like I said, it was really, really fun. So we're diving into spoilers right now. If you haven't seen the episode, go check it out. We're going to dive into spoilers right now. So, Sabine and Ahsoka are on their way to the planet where Morgan Elsbeth is stationed with the Eye of Sion, and upon arriving there, they are attacked by Shin Hati, by Merrick, and some fodder bad guys and their spaceships. This was a really good fight, and it reminded me of the scene in A New Hope where Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewbacca were having to fight off TIE fighters to escape the Death Star and get the plans of the Death Star to the Rebellion. And this really wasn't the only thing that reminded me of A New Hope. In the episode, there's a lot of New Hope callbacks here, because at the start of the episode, before the opening sequence, we get a training scene that was obviously calling back to the scene where Luke is training with that floating droid on the Millennium Falcon, and Obi-Wan is trying to teach him to use his to not use his eyes, but to use the Force to sense out his environment. The opening scene of episode 3 of Ahsoka is very, very similar to that. Ahsoka makes Sabine wear a helmet where she has to battle Ahsoka blind. This scene was not only a callback to episode 4, but reminded me of old samurai movies that were really the inspiration for the Jedi for George Lucas, and because of that, I found it to be a real treat. I also like this scene because it does call back to something in A New Hope, but it does it in a different context and a different style with different characters, and it felt like the right way to do nostalgia and fan service. It's like George Lucas always said, it's like poetry, it rhymes. And what I also love about this training session was Hu Yang, the droid pulling off his best General Grievous impression. This droid is funny. He is snarky, and yet I like him. I really like him. He reminds me of C-3PO, but the dude has a lightsaber. And then Ahsoka as a master. She is giving off the Qui-Gon Jinn vibes hard, man. And I'm here for that all day, every day, because Qui-Gon is my favorite Jedi in the series. I have to do an entire video about why I love Qui-Gon so much. But to me, Qui-Gon is what a true Jedi should be. He is an agent of the Force, not the Senate, not the Council, the Force, like a Jedi should be. Ahsoka, I feel, is the same, though probably more jaded, definitely more jaded, because as she said, the Jedi failed. They failed her, they failed the Republic, they failed themselves, and that's why she left. Like Ahsoka said, she doesn't want Sabine to be a Jedi. Hugh Yang talks about how Sabine would have never been accepted by the Order back in the old days, but because Ahsoka is her master, Sabine doesn't have to be a Jedi, at least not a Jedi like what we saw in the Old Republic, in the prequels. The Jedi of the future, what Luke should have created, what he did create in Legends, what Ahsoka should be a part of creating if we still weren't headed for those damn sequels, should be more like Qui-Gon. Agents of the Force, following the will of the Force, not, a sword of a government, any government, Republic or Empire. I like this. Everything in this opening sequence, I really, really love. He got into some of the spirituality surrounding Star Wars, and the thing about me in Star Wars is that, I love, the underground, the criminal underground, the Mandalorian stuff, bounty hunters, all that stuff is cool. But I'm always going to go back to Jedi and Sith. I'm always going to go back to stuff about the Force. I'm always going to go about the spirituality of Star Wars, because I'm a very spiritual person myself, and so that's what really attracts me to Star Wars, is its spiritual message. And we see here in Ahsoka, we actually have a scene where Ahsoka and Sabine are having this conversation about, about Sabine rather, not really having a strong connection to the Force, and not really being able to use the Force, like a typical Jedi would be able to, and especially not, uber powerful Jedi like Anakin or Yoda or anybody like that. And, Ahsoka does explain, everybody has the Force. The Force flows through everything. The Force is life itself. It's this life force, this energy that pervasives throughout the entire universe. Everything that lives has the Force. It's just some people are more talented at it. Some people may have a leg up. Some people have to train a little bit harder. Not everybody's the chosen one, like Anakin Skywalker, or, Little Miss, all right, Skywalker. Some people have to train a little bit harder. Of course, there's the whole midichlorian thing. Disney is very careful not to bring up midichlorians in this scene. I was waiting for Ahsoka to say something about it. I don't have a problem with midichlorians. I know some people do. They're not as bad as people want to claim they are. They don't create the Force. They're not the Force itself. They're just like receptors for Force users. They are receptors to the Force. I need to do a whole video on that as well, explaining why midichlorians are not as bad as people think. But yeah, I love this conversation, and it really gets me interested to see how Sabine is going to develop, because, like Hugh Yang says in this episode, there's not been many Mandalorian Jedi. There's not been many Mandalorian Jedi at all. And so I'm really interested to see the type of Force wielder that Sabine develops into. I think she's going to be something very, very different. I don't think she's going to be uber powerful or anything, but I think she's going to be something unique, and I'm really excited to see that. So getting back to the battle, Ahsoka and Sabine make their way to the Eye of Sion, which turns out is a giant hyperspace ring, similar to the ones that we saw, I think it was in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. We see Obi-Wan using a much smaller version of these, and their purpose is to explore hyperspace lanes, which is what allows for people in Star Wars to travel across the galaxy so quickly. However, the Eye of Sion, being so much more powerful, can actually access hyperspace lanes between galaxies themselves, and this is how they plan to get to the galaxy that Thrawn is in. As Ahsoka and Sabine approach the Eye of Sion, Morgan Elsbeth attacks them, shooting at them. And this was a pretty tense moment because they were just barely dodging her attacks, just barely missing them. They do take some damage, leaving their ship disabled for a bit, and then we get a scene that, I'm not going to lie to you, at first, I thought this was going to be absolutely terrible and would almost ruin the episode for me. While Sabine tries to fix the ship, Ahsoka steps outside into space to attack the enemy ships with her freaking lightsaber, and when I first saw her step out, I thought she was coming out without any sort of protection because she's in silhouette at first, and I thought that somehow she was using the Force to breathe in space, and I was like, oh no, I thought we were going to get, a scene that was going to be as dumb as the Superman Leia scene from The Last Jedi. I was like, oh no, what are they doing? That's not how the Force works. Like, what's happening here? Thank God that wasn't it. That was not the case, because we do see that she is wearing a spacesuit. And, honestly, this scene is kind of crazy, but it was fun. And this is where we get to see some of the playfulness of Ahsoka that she had in the Clone Wars come back out again. Obviously, it's a serious situation, but you can tell that Ahsoka is having a bit of fun here. It did remind me a lot of certain scenes from the Clone Wars, and I've already heard some people criticize this scene. Talking about, like, one of the criticisms was, like, how is she able to jump off the ship and then, be pulled back to the ship and stuff? Like, did she use the Force to do that? No, you idiot. It's called gravity boots. Okay, it's a thing in Star Wars, all right? I'm pretty sure they used it in the Clone Wars at some point, but it's called gravity boots, all right? It allows you to stay connected to a spaceship even while out in space, because it's basically like a magnet pulling you back down to the spaceship. It's gravity pulling you back down. It's just, some people are so stupid. I mean, some people are so dumb. They go into this acting like, well, this has never happened in Star Wars, or that's never happened in Star Wars. Yes, it has. It's just not in the films. It's in the extended universe. It's in stuff that Lucas did. It's in stuff that Filoni did before Disney even bought the franchise. I swear, some of these people are so dense. It's ridiculous. But let's move on with the review. Once the ship is fixed, they blast off to the planet. And they encounter the space whales from Star Wars Rebels, and this is why you need to see Rebels, because I can imagine people who haven't seen Rebels will not understand the significance of these freaking whales. But these things are hugely important to the entire plot of this series, which is to find Thrawn and Ezra, because the space whales have a type of biological hyperdrive. They can travel the hyperspace lanes naturally. Space is kind of their natural environment, and it was these whales who sent Ezra and Thrawn into parts unknown at the end of Rebels. So finding these whales means they are on the right track to finding Ezra, and it seems that these whales have the ability to not only travel through hyperspace lanes within the main galaxy, but to actually travel to other galaxies. So good stuff for sure, especially if you're a Rebels fan, which, like I've said before, you need to be a Rebels fan in order to really enjoy this series and to really understand what's going on. So Ahsoka and Sabine land the ship in the forest to hide. Baylan Skoll, who is on the planet, figures out their plan and begins a search for them, meaning in the next episode, episode 4, we are probably going to get that fight between Baylan and Ahsoka that we saw from the trailers, so I am definitely looking forward to that. Now, something I do want to take note of in this episode was Merrick. The dude speaks, and he has a voice changer. Why does he have a voice changer? Honest to God, I thought this dude was just going to be a new character, not Barriss Offee, though I do want to see her, not Ezra, because Ezra should be in the other galaxy with Thrawn. How did he get back to the main galaxy? The Ezra theory, Merrick being Ezra, that whole theory just makes no sense to me, in all honesty. But could Merrick actually be Starkiller? Is Filoni actually about to make Starkiller canon? Maybe. I mean, maybe that's one of the things we're going to see this season, is that we're going to see, the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker versus the apprentice of Darth Vader. Maybe. I'm just wondering why the writers decided to give him a voice changer, unless he is someone we know, a character we already know of, and they are hiding his real voice in order to surprise us later with the reveal. I'm not sure, but I now think that it's a good deal more likely that this character is actually more important than I originally thought. And the last thing that I need to discuss is the scene with Hera talking to the senators of the New Republic, including Mon Mothma, who I think would be Supreme Chancellor at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think in the novels and stuff she is supposed to be Supreme Chancellor at this point. But anyways, Hera is trying to get the support of the New Republic to aid in finding and stopping Thrawn, but the senators believe that he and Ezra are dead and that Thrawn is no longer a threat. Dude, the New Republic is so incompetent. They disregarded the threat of the First Order. They're disregarding the threat of Thrawn. Honestly, they kind of had what was coming to them in The Force Awakens when Starkiller Base blew them up. The New Republic is very, very annoying, and from what I know of them in other material, apparently this is right in line with their attitude. Apparently they are very incompetent and they're not very smart. If we see the Republic reformed in the Rey movie, I hope they are more competent by then, because this is kind of ridiculous. But hey, they're politicians, and as we all know from politicians in real life, what more do you expect? They're slow to act, they're incompetent, and at worst, they're corrupt. We also get to see Hera's son, Jason Syndulla, who she had with Kanan, who was Ezra's master in Rebels. As a Rebels fan, seeing this little guy brought a smile to my face, and I'm hoping that we get to see him as a Jedi when he's older. Maybe he'll be in the Rey movie. I hope he doesn't join Luke's order, because that means he probably got taken out by Kylo Ren, and I don't want to think about this little adorable guy being slaughtered by Kylo Ren. So I'm hoping that he's still alive and that maybe he becomes a Jedi in the Rey movie. Who knows? But anyways, I think this show may be setting up a lot for the future, not only for the Dave Filoni movie that we know is coming, but for stuff beyond that. And it does kind of get me excited, even though I do know this is leading to the sequels. I think, Dave Filoni and other people are trying to kind of patchwork things together and make it as good as they possibly can, even with the tyranny of Kathleen Kennedy still hanging large over Lucasfilm. Anyways, this was a great episode, a fun episode. I enjoyed it, and given the showdown between Ahsoka and Baylan that is being set up for episode 4, I'm looking forward to that even more. Anyways, you guys already know what to do. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. And check out the Patreon, where you guys can get exclusive live reactions to Ahsoka episodes. It's only $3 a month. That's a cup of coffee. You guys can afford that. But yeah, go check out the Patreon. We have a lot of fun over there. And also, while I'm at it, if you guys are feeling extra generous, I do have a Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all that good stuff. The information for that is on your screen right now, and the information for that is down in the description box down below. Anyways, tell me what you thought about this episode of Ahsoka, and are you excited for episode 4 like I am? Until the next one, this is JeskerJames with a Z, signing out.